Okay, guys, I think this is where we stopped in part one. And now we're going to just kind of review a little bit to make sure you remember and understand the Social Security and Medicare taxes. Remember that your Social Security and Medicare go inside of the definition of what payroll tax is. Be reminded that payroll tax is a tax on earned income. Your Social Security payroll tax helps fund the Social Security program. Social Security is a federal government program that helps citizens fund retirement as well as helps people who have profound disabilities and are under the age of 18 and experience the premature death of a parent or the death of a spouse in the family with minor children. The tax rate for Social Security is 6.2. The cumulative maximum amount of tax contributions from your paycheck varies from year to year. In Medicare program, the program's main purpose is to help pay for health care for senior citizens in the U.S. The tax rate amount is 1.45% and there is no annual limit. So that's just a review of what the taxes are. Also, in addition to deducting Social Security and Medicare taxes from an individual's earned income, employers are required to match their employees' tax contributions. Remember yesterday I told you that it is very common for people to think that when they give their money or when the employer keeps the money, they think the employer is keeping it. That is not true. The employer is holding it so that he can then in turn pay it. Okay? And he has to match your funds. So for example, if an employee owes $100 for Social Security and Medicare taxes put together, the employer will deduct this amount from the employee's check. Then the employer will pay the government a total of $200, $100 for the employee's part, and $100 for the employer's portion of the tax. Self-employed people must pay both the employee and employer Social Security tax and Medicare contributions for themselves. If you don't quite understand that, you may want to rewind and move, make sure you understand that before you move forward. What's the difference between income tax and payroll tax? Income tax is paid on both earned and unearned income. Remember that earned is from a job. Unearned income is like, for example, from your interest rates that you accumulate on your savings. Amount paid depends on many different factors, but increases and income increases. In other words, what that should say is the amount paid depends on many different factors, but it increases as your income increases. Remember, the people who make the most pay the most taxes. Funds many different operations and programs of the federal government. Payroll tax, paid on only earned income, not the unearned income. It's a set percentage of earned income is paid. Again, we know the percentages now. What is Social Security tax? Test yourself. Did you answer 6.2? What's Medicare? Did you answer 1.5? If you didn't, you need to review that. The funds for Social Security and Medicare programs is what is paid for payroll taxes. Property tax. Property tax is a tax on property such as land, buildings, which is including homes, and motor vehicles. Tax is determined by percentage of property value. Amount paid varies depending upon where you live. So there's a different amount based off of the counties. Paid by whom? That's property owners. So this is anybody that owns something. So if you are renting, that's not the same thing. Fees to licensed cars is a property tax, and it helps fund schools, expenses of state and local governments. Sales tax. Most of you already know what sales tax is. Tax on purchased goods and services. The tax is determined by a percentage added to the original price of an item. $1, the item is charged 6% sales tax. Okay, 6% to $1 would be 6 cents. So your total amount is $1.06. Paid by anyone who purchases an item charged with sales tax. Some states don't have sales tax. Does our state? I think you know that. What's our percentage in North Carolina, our sales tax? Or actually, it's by county, so it would be, what is Pitt County's tax rate? Did you say 7%? If you didn't, again, that's something that we need to know. Helps fund expenses of state and local governments. And of course, I just asked you about, does your state have sales tax? Excise tax. Excise tax, taxes collected from a seller or retailer, and as such often remain hidden in the price of the produce or the service. In other words, sometimes you don't even realize you're paying it. The tax is determined by purchases of certain items, things like gas. Like, you don't see the tax that's built into the gas. That's an excise tax. Hotel rooms, airline tickets, cigarettes, and alcohol. Often included within the price of these items. Paid by anyone who purchases these certain items. And it varies by location. Helps fund expenses, again, of state and local governments. How are tax rates determined? Determined by public representatives, city councils, county commissions, state legislators, and Congress. Elected by the voters. This is one reason why it's really important for you to be mindful of who to vote for. Now, I can't say that they all do what they say they're going to do. I cannot promise that. Unfortunately, that does not always happen. However, it is your job as a citizen, once you get old enough to vote, to pay attention to these things, because your tax rates are going to be determined based off of the people that end up in these positions. So everything's not the White House's fault. I mean, it does stem from that, and the laws stem from the top and move down. But here, like, for example, in Pitt County, you are concerned with who is on the city council, who are the county commissioners, who are your state legislators, and who is in your Congress. Taxpayers equals voters. If you pay taxes, you vote. That simple. Work as a voting group to elect representatives who will represent the majority. Taxes and money management. Taxes play a role in both earning and spending. One of the largest expenses for many people. Why do you think understanding taxes is an important part of money management? Think about that statement, and again, you will be answering that in a bell ringer coming up shortly. What should you have learned in this unit? Without taxes, it would be hard to pay for many of the benefits of being a member of a community. Taxes are charged in many different forms. The amount of taxes you pay and what you pay those taxes on will vary depending where you live and your income. And then understanding taxes is an important part of money management. An example of that would be, my children tend to say, "But Mom, it's only $6, but yet it's $6.99. So they've already missed that 99¢, right? But then they also miss the whole 7% tax that goes along with it. So, part of that's their youth, but a lot of you too may not think about the tax that goes on an item. Now, if it's just $6.99, then it's going to be a little under 50 cents anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But when you're talking about a $300 item, then you're talking about $21 added to that $300 item. So that is, part of the money management scheme. Okay, on this next slide, you will be answering several questions on the next 2 slides actually. And I want to make sure that you understand a few things. First of all, when you receive a paycheck, and let's say that your check is $300, you should understand at this point that your paycheck is $300, but you're not going to walk home with all of that money, because you should know by now that you also have to pay your Social Security and your Medicare out of that. But I just want to make sure you know how to calculate that. If I have a $300 check and I have to pay 6.2% Social Security, what I'm going to do is take $300, multiply it by 0.062. Why am I doing 0.602? Or excuse me, 0.062. I'm doing that to make sure that I transfer my percentage into a decimal. So I'm going to multiply 300 by 0.062, and that's going to give me an amount of $18.60. I would then subtract that $18.60 from my 300, and the amount I now have is $281.40. So I just want to make sure you know how to do that, because you're going to have to answer a few of those questions coming up. The same thing with sales tax. If I purchase an item at $14 and I have to pay 7%, I'm going to multiply it by 0.07, and that's going to make me pay 98 cents. I would then take that 98 cents and then I would add that to my $14. Okay, so next you're going to answer the questions on the next 2 slides. On these 2 slides, notice these are not easy questions. They're not necessarily hard, but my point is, like in number 1, how is a community helpful when discussing taxes? Well, you do not need the definition of community to answer this. You may have to go back and refer to it, and you may have to go back and look at the video in part 1. But these are thought-provoking questions. These are not, I'm going to get a definition and regurgitate it back to Ms. Miles kind of questions. So you're not going to say, community is a group of people with common interest and concern for common good. That's not going to be the right answer. I want to know, how is the community helpful when discussing taxes? Okay, so make sure that you read the questions good. Make sure that you answer them as what they're asking. So make sure that you're not just making up your own thing and just giving me definitions, because this is applying what you learned. You can put this in a Google Drive. So what I would do is, so you don't have to type all the questions, you can copy and paste the questions into the Google Drive, and then you can answer the questions accordingly. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will be happy to help you. Happy hunting.